it's bound to come out eventually. There's something I wrestle with that you guys need to know about and hold me accountable to. I hate Walmart. And I know you're not supposed to hate anything, but I do. I really do. I go there, but it's almost like this self-inflicted, it's just a horrible, horrible thing for me to do to myself. I once watched a woman talking, she was walking and talking backward to a friend as she was walking into Walmart. And here's the thing that gets me. Go in the proper door. They are labeled. There's an obvious entrance. There's an obvious exit. In this Walmart, to go out the entrance, you have to skip over the first door. You're going out of your way to do it. And so, but I was watching a woman one time walking and looking back, and she, you know, because if you go in the wrong door, it doesn't open as quickly. Which the doors don't open quickly at Walmart. Well, let me tell you why. Because they want you to meander through Walmart. That's how you buy more things. So if you're walking at your normal pace and you get to the door, okay, now it's open. Now you're at Walmart pace. This is what they want. But anyway, it was going to open slower, and I thought she's not looking, and she's about to run in to the exit door. She's not supposed. She deserves it. So I had my hand around the confetti that I kept in my pocket for just such an occasion. And I was ready to celebrate. And it opened. And what I started thinking was, well, that would have been horrible for her. That would have been a horrible thing. Almost as embarrassing as, I don't know, like leaning on your phone and having Siri tell you she's not available in the middle of communion. That happened to me just now, if y'all didn't hear that. Apparently Siri's not available when you have your phone on airplane mode. But that would have been embarrassing for her and horrible. But like me, in that moment, I thought, well, I'm going to enjoy this. But maybe, and this is one of the hardest things about being a Christian, or about just being a decent human being, is that the world doesn't revolve around me. Like, my enjoyment of a situation isn't the utmost importance to our story. It's not the most important thing that's going on. One time I went into Walmart and I thought, my goodness, there are way too many people here. So I left because I was one of the people. We think that a lot, but then when we say, well, this place is just overcrowded, what we mean is, I would like to still be here and let all these other people leave. We like the world to look just perfect for us, to look just dandy for me. And as long as that happens, we're happy. I've used this analogy before. You go to a restaurant, sitting at a table. Your waitress, who should only have about 3 or 4 tables to wait, but now she has like 5 or 6, and she is running around like crazy, trying to get everybody's orders, and she is just missing yours. Like, she's getting everybody else's, she's missing your table. She's a horrible waitress. Right? In your mind, you start thinking, this person's just a horrible, like, why are they even paying her? She's only horrible if she's messing up with you. If she was doing well with you, messing up with the table next to you, you would think, oh, well, how unfortunate for them. But now, she's horrible because she's not serving you properly. The world just revolves around us. I am the central character of my story. There's a humanist, he's a teacher at a college or university. He described himself as a humanist. He wrote a book in which he said his main premise was, you should not be the main character of your own story. If your story involves you being the main character, it's a broken story. There should be something greater. And he was giving this lecture and talking about this book on a panel. He's an atheist or an agnostic. I don't know. But that was just for the language geeks. Anyone? No? Okay. So he's an atheist, and he was on this panel, and he told this and said, we need to be living in such a way that we aren't the main character. And another way of saying that is, we aren't the one whom the world revolves around. We aren't the most important person in the world. And I think the best New Testament scholar on the planet, his name's N.T. Wright. Tom Wright. N.T. Wright was on this panel, and he sat there and listened, and he said, I love your point about how we shouldn't be the main character in our story, how the world shouldn't revolve around us, and he was very gracious. And he said, I thank you so much for bringing that up. But could I ask, who's the hero in this story? In your story in which the world doesn't revolve around you, if you're not the hero, then who is? If you're not the protagonist, then who is? You guys say, well, I don't want to take the analogy too far. N.T. Wright had a point. Often we want to say, well, I want to be less selfish. I don't want to be the main character. I don't want the world to revolve around me. But if it's not going to revolve around you, who is it going to revolve around? Unless it's Christ. Unless you're following something greater than you, it's just natural that the world's going to revolve around you. You are your gravitational default. You're the one you wake up with, you're the one you go to bed with, you're the one you know when you're hungry. Or when you could eat. There's difference sometimes. Rachel will say, are you hungry? I could eat. I am able. So you know all of your needs, and you know all of your wants and all of your inconveniences. So the world revolving around you is default. Because you don't think instinctively about the inconveniences and the needs and the wants of the people around you. It's just, they don't come into your mind as soon as they come into the people around you. So, we have to see something bigger than ourselves. Because if your world's going to revolve around your spouse will fail you. If your world is going to revolve around your job will fail you. And then it's back to the world revolving around me. If your world is going to revolve around your church eventually is going to let you down. It's not going to do all the things that you had hoped it would. The right people aren't always going to say hi to you. But if you let your world revolve around Jesus, truly revolve around Jesus, then I can promise you He will not let you down. I don't have a clicker. Do I? Is it right here? There. That's fine. If you can handle it up there, I'll be alright. Alright. You're better than I am anyway. In Matthew chapter 16, Jesus asked His disciples, starting verse 13. It says, when Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, He asked His disciples, who do people say the Son of Man is? Another way of phrasing this in other Gospels is, who do people say that I am? They replied, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, still others Jeremiah, and one of the prophets. And then Jesus asked them, but what about you? Who do you say I am? Simon Peter answered, you are the Christ. Or if you're a Jew and you speak in Hebrew, he would say, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Right? Ding, ding, ding. That's it. You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Now, here's what's interesting, though. Peter says you are the Messiah. But what I wonder is, what does he mean by that? Like if someone comes up to me and says, hey, you're the preacher, right? What do you mean by that? Does that mean, because I've had people assume that means I make every decision around here. I don't. Hugh does. No one makes every decision around here. No one makes every, but some people assume that about me, or like they're like, well, could you give me some of the church's money? No, I can't. I don't have that authority. I just do this thing here. So sometimes some people, when they ask you something, their assumption about what they're saying is different from the assumption about what you think it means. And so we have different norms of language. So when Peter says, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God, a good question is, what does he mean? Like, I know what I mean when I say Christ. And I don't just mean Jesus' last name, like he was the son of Mary Christ and Joseph Christ. Jesus, like that's not just, like we treat it from like, oh, Jesus Christ. He's actually, that's actually a better title than just Jesus Christ. It's Jesus the Christ. Jesus the Messiah. So I know what I mean when I say that. What did Peter mean? Now there's a scene in the garden whenever they come to arrest Jesus, and they grab him, or they're about to grab him, and Peter pulls a sword. You know, because most fishermen need swords. Why did Peter have a sword? Which that's one of my favorite stories, because he got his ear, which wasn't, you know, he wasn't just aiming for ear. No one pulls a sword and is like, I'm getting that boy's ear. You know? He was going for head, you know, you duck, didn't duck well enough, caught an ear, which I always wonder, man, why did that guy duck? That would have been such a cooler miracle. You know, put that thing back on. But anyway, why in the world is he taking swipes at people? Why is he trying to cut heads off? Why does he think that because they're coming to arrest Jesus, this is a pertinent time to cut somebody's head off? Because he thought that Messiah meant that Jesus was somehow going to be the ruler. Now, he was going to overthrow the government. A lot of the people that Peter hung out with said that you need to keep a sword on your hip, and when the Messiah comes, you cut the throat of the first Roman soldier you see. For them, Messiah meant revolt. For them, Messiah meant new order, we are going to take back our land. That's why, well, for them, Messiah meant something very selfish. It was about the people of Israel. It was about Peter. The Messiah served Peter. That's why when we get to Matthew chapter 16 and further on. Actually, can you jump to verse 21? It said, from that time, after Jesus had said, that's right, I am the Messiah. From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, chief priests, teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised again to life. You can imagine that this doesn't quite fit into Peter's plan. So this is why, just in every telling of this, you've got Peter confessing that Jesus is the Messiah, that he is the Christ. And then the next story is Jesus calling Peter Satan. How did Peter, going from the one who got the answer right in Bible class to the one who Jesus called Satan? It's because his belief about God, his belief about Jesus, his belief about the Messiah was not about what God was doing in the world, but it was about what God was doing for Peter. About what Jesus was doing for Peter's interest. He says, I'm going to have to die, I'm going to suffer, I'm going to be killed, third day I'm going to raise to life. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. Never, Lord. Very harsh, absolute, no, it never, not happening. This shall not happen to you. Jesus said something to Peter now that Peter probably wasn't expecting. Get behind me, Satan. Satan, he's not calling it. Satan in our Bibles gets kind of messed up. Satan is just a Hebrew word for adversary, for someone who's trying to trip me up, for an opponent. It's just Satan. So if he, as a Hebrew person, says, get behind me, Satan, it's just him saying, get behind me, somebody who's trying to trip me up. I don't think it justifies the capital S here. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the things of God, but the things of men. Then Jesus said to his disciples, if anyone would come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for me will find it. This idea of following Jesus is about taking up your cross and following him. A lot of times we have made Jesus about him following me. Like, Jesus, if you could just go to work with me, and if you could if you could bless the things I'm doing. That's all I really need. If you could just do, like, I'll go ahead and do what I do, and do the things I'm doing. If you could somehow make them holy while I continue to do what I did before I came to you, and now I'm still doing it, if you could just kind of make it holy, then that would be great. Jesus says, if you want to follow me, it involves a cross. It involves dying to yourself. See, in an ideal world, we would say, of course, yes, I want someone, I don't want to be the center of my world. I don't want to follow just my own ambitions. I don't want to just give in to my own wants and desires. I don't want to be the center of my universe. But if that sentence does not end with, so then I'm going to give my life to Christ, you will always fall back into the center of your own universe. And listen, I'm not saying you don't get to have fun and be at the center of your own universe. That's painful. It hurts. It is hard to keep up this, I need everyone to be pleasing me. Because then you're starting to control them. Then you're saying, well, the person at Walmart's got to make me happy, and my waitress has got to make me happy, or waiter's got to make me happy, the bank teller's got to make me happy. Then your whole world revolves around whether or not I've got it, or the people around me have got it all together. And you go home and you look across the table at your wife or your husband and you think, man, why can't they just get it all together? And then you try to control them and try to make them be right. And that's exhausting. And fruitless. It doesn't produce a thing. You can't change anybody but yourself. But when the world revolves around you, you don't have to change yourself. You just got to change everybody else. Christ calls us to be set free from that life. When he offers us a cross, it's not about something that's just going to pain us. Sometimes the way we talked about that was, it's my cross to bear. I got to bear my cross. It's a burden. The cross wasn't an image of a burden. People didn't just carry around crosses. They died on them. The cross is not something to carry. It's something to die on. The cross is a place where you give up you. And to be set free from letting the world revolve around me, that's a pretty good deal. a waitress didn't get under your skin? Can you imagine what it would be like if your spouse didn't have to be perfect for you to be happy? Can you imagine what it would be like where you could have joy in a job you weren't completely fond of? Where all the other things in your life weren't responsible for your happiness, but you had picked up a cross and died to yourself, and now you were following Jesus. And just the fact that you get to follow Jesus is grace. If you want to follow Jesus, and not insist that He follow you, you're going to have to die to yourself. Now, it's super easy to say, well, I'm going to follow Jesus, but still be the center of my universe. You can claim Jesus. We do this sometimes, right? I remember growing up and we used to do this thing where we put ourselves in the center, right? And then you'd have all the things that you did. You got your sports and your music, and you got your school and your job, and you got all these things. And they would say, well, in God and church are one of the things over here. And then they would say, but wait a second, you need to switch them. Then God's in the center, and then your sports are connected to God, and then you're connected. But does God play in your sports? And it gets kind of confusing eventually. And what the diagram should look like, since we're Americans and we love diagrams, the diagram should look like just God encompassing everything you do. See, it's no longer about whether or not who's in the center. It's about who's ruling. And so, yeah, we'll play this sport, we'll go to this school, and we'll have this job, and we'll have this relationship, but my relationships are not ruled by my wants and desires, by earthly things anymore. My relationships are ruled by the fact that I follow Jesus. We can be super selfish sometimes. Have you ever heard that we are hardest on the people that we love the most? You know why that is? It's because often what we call love is just expectation. I got married to this person, now they're supposed to make me happy. And you go to marriage conferences, and people will go to marriage conferences, sit through like a weekend marriage retreat, and then they'll come home and they'll know exactly what their spouse is supposed to do better. Yeah. That happens. It's because we, the people we love the most, we let into our world most often. And when we let people into a world that revolves around me most often, then they are going to be the people we're hardest on. If you are hardest on the people you love, your world revolves around you. But if you have a grace-based belief that Jesus let me in, let me follow Him, He let me die with Him, I've been set free from letting the world revolve around me by Jesus of Nazareth, then my story, I'm not the main character in my story anymore, and Jesus is the hero. True Jesus. The Jesus who wants what's best for this world, not what's best for me. We've been set free from that. And why would we go back? You go to a small group tonight. There's a good chance that they're going to be talking about the curriculum is called Set Free. The idea is that when the disciples, when the Egyptians, take three, the Israelites were set free from Egypt, they got out of Egypt, and they would say, we want to go back for the potted meats, but no one ever said, I want to go back for the forced labor. Often we talk about sin like it's some tempting thing, that it's just something that we can't do. Well, God doesn't want us doing that. No, sin is something that God has set us free from. He has set us free from being addicted to anger. He has set us free from being overly busy. He's set us free from having to judge other people, trying to figure out who's going to heaven and who's going to hell. He set us free from that. He set us free from having the world revolve around me. That's tough. That'll weigh on you. So if you're willing to follow Jesus, not just say, okay, well, I'd like to be a part of this Jesus thing. Jesus, can you come on? Because I was going over here. Why don't you just follow me for a while and see how that works out? You're willing to give up you. Let the world no longer revolve around you, but you start following the Savior. Start following the Messiah. That's a life of freedom. It's a life of blessing. It's a life of grace. It's a life of salvation. It's a life of God making you whole. And I can guarantee you, you won't want to go back. You won't desire that again. Because it's very hard managing the motives and the thoughts and the actions of everyone around you. But it's very nice. It's difficult at times. It's a fight. It's a struggle. But it's very nice to let Jesus rule your story. To be a secondary character, a minor character in this grand story in which Jesus is the hero. So when I'm letting Jesus rule, that Walmart doesn't bother me. Thankfully now, this one doesn't have an express lane, so I can't be a judgmental jerk and count people's items. See, I'm trying to manage them, trying to manage other people. That just won't fly. That's not a healthy way to live. But unless you then leave that and attach yourself and follow Jesus, unless you give up self and follow Him, you'll end up right back there again. There's just no other option. Because as soon as you start letting your life revolve around your spouse, or your life revolve around your job, or your life revolve around your church, those things are going to fail you, and then you're right back to square one. I can promise you this. Jesus of Nazareth, the Messiah, the King, will not fail. He is worth giving up your life for. He is worth laying down your life for. He's worth picking up your cross for. He will not let you down. So give up your gravitational pull. Give up that need to manage others. And give in to a Savior who is calling you to deny yourself and follow Him. If you've got some self to deny, if you want to be set free from letting the world revolve around you, and Jesus is the only answer. Taking up your cross, coming forward, leaving out, grabbing a friend next to you and letting them pray with you. Whatever you need to do to take up your cross and continually follow Jesus. To stop letting the world revolve around you, but let your world revolve around something greater than yourself. Whatever it is you need to do. Please do that.